Are books pointless in 2026? Specifically, is the act of reading books pointless in 2026? Nowadays, when we have YouTube, Instagram, AI, ChatGPT, Claude, all this type of stuff that can give you information literally instantly, and not only information given in a way that is specific to you based on the user, like based on how you talk, based on how you perceive information. You have an AI that can break down things for you, break down whatever for you, and give it in a nice packaged box for your brain. With that being said, there is an argument that a lot of people like to make where it's like, is there any reason to read books? Is there any reason to have these physical, huge packets of paper that just contain information or contain even stories, right? Even reading stories. What's the point of reading a story if I can just look up what happens, like the theme, the plot, what I'm supposed to learn from it? AI can tell me that in like 3 seconds. First of all, let me just say this. It is very, very true that with short form, whether it's YouTube Shorts, IG Reels, or TikToks, whatever, honestly, for me, YouTube Shorts is kind of goated. Like, if you've never changed a tire before, you can learn how to do that on YouTube or YouTube Shorts within like 3 minutes. And I just think if any of our ancestors saw that, they would be like, bro, what? Life would be so much easier for them. Matter of fact, a lot of people that have a hard time nowadays, like on a day-to-day basis, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. If you have problems that are solved with YouTube, most people, at least in my generation, it's almost like second nature just to be like, oh, let me look that up on YouTube. Not even like, let me ask ChatGPT for some stuff like that, like real life stuff, because you're watching someone else do it. ChatGPT can be like, oh, put this screw here and do this, right? YouTube, you get to actually see someone do it, and I think that's much more valuable. Now, obviously, short form dominates that, but with information, right? Pure information. The book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's like Dale Carnegie something, right? I read that book in high school, and I still remember a good bit of it to this day. Like, I read it on a book. I could go ahead and ask ChatGPT, hey, can you break this down for me? And it will break down every single step that he has, you know what I mean? It could tell me examples, like give me an example in the NBA, right? Give me an example in 2K terms. Give me an example in Rocket League terms. I could break it down in whatever terms, and it can successfully do that for me. It's crazy. It does it in seconds, right? And all the while, I don't even have to buy the book. That's the craziest part. It's almost like watching a movie for free. Like, you get all the good stuff from the book for free from ChatGPT. So with all of that said, you would probably get the message. Books are pretty pointless. Like, there is no reason to even read a book or pick up a book or anything like that. However, and I'm not trying to sound like a teacher, there is a few important details that's left behind, because this is how normally I think about it, right? I always think about it like, oh, the information is out there, why do we even need books? However, if you think about it, and I know this might sound like a troglodyte take, and I didn't think of this right away, all the information out there was given by somebody else, right? And I know this still applies to books, like somebody wrote it, and so somebody has a bias, but it's easier to realize this with books. It's easier to be like, okay, this author wrote this, and so it's influenced by this author. But it's harder with this collective internet, YouTube, and just social media consciousness in general, because we perceive facts as facts if just enough people agree with it. You know what I mean? Whether you want to agree with that or not, that is just how it is. Like, for example, because a lot of people that would probably be like, oh, no, I'm too smart to do that, and I make my own opinions, right? If you go to Starbucks and you're in line, and you go up to the sign, you're like, I don't even know what to order, but there's this new drink, and it's like called the pumpkin chocolate, the pumpkin chocolate express, right? And you go on TikTok and you just see, first thing you look it up, you see like 7 videos of people being like, this is terrible, this is the worst drink ever, this is super salty, it's super this, it's everyone's saying the same thing. You're probably not gonna drink it. You're probably not gonna get it based on those other people's opinions. I mean, that's just human, right? But you gotta understand that is all just an opinion. That is the same thing with everything, even more important things. Everything is an opinion. And so I would say books are a less influenced opinion in that standpoint. So with that being said, the information that you get online is really just summaries of all these different opinions. None of it necessarily is fact. Like, some things are quote unquote facts, right? Because so many people agree with it. Also, in addition to that, right, this isn't really important to me because I don't read books for stories, don't get me wrong. I read more the like, like the deep work books or the creative act type books where it's like, reading it is kind of a process or like kind of a passion. But some people read books like Harry Potter, and you might ask, oh, why are you reading Harry Potter if you can go watch it? Fair point, right? But some people like that pacing. Some people like to understand the plot for themselves. They like to see the characters as they think it should be. You know what I mean? And that's why some people, they don't even like when the movies come out, because it's like, dang, bro, like that's not how I saw them in my head. But even the information itself, right? Reading it's more of a slow burn type of process. It's more of it gets ingrained into your brain easier. And I could totally agree with that, because all the books I read, I remember because it took me a long time. Now, y'all might call me sped or whatever. I don't really care, because it might be true. But, like, I read a book, Sean Livingston Seagull. I still remember that book, and I still rock with that book, bro. I still remember most of it, and it's literally a trip, because it makes no sense, but a bunch of sense in my head. If you've never read that book, man, go watch a summary of it, because I know y'all not going to read it. Even with the other book that I mentioned, How to Win Friends and Influence People, most of the book, the reason why you should read it on paper isn't necessarily because you'll get the information like in a better way, but literally in the book there are hundreds of examples that he gives of applying this stuff. Like, if I tell you some type of deep metaphorical thing like, reach into your soul and bring the sunlight out or something, right? You might take it and run with it for like a day, and you might be like, let me try to live like that. But it's gonna wear off after a little while. A book like that, if you keep reading it several days and you're still on the same type of passage or same type of fact that he's saying, you're gonna look for ways in your everyday life to sprinkle it in. One of the biggest things I learned from the book, right, that I read the book, it was he was at a gardener, he was at a party, and the whole time he was just talking to this gardener. He was just talking. Now, I don't know the specific details, and I'm not even gonna look it up and act like I know, right? But it was something like he was just very fascinated about this gardener. He was very, very interested in what this gardener was saying. And at the end of the day, the gardener was actually he really liked the guy. He was super interested in him, even though he didn't necessarily even say anything. He was just interested in the gardener, and the gardener thought that guy was interesting because he was so interested. Stuff like that is the type of stuff that really lives with people. And the only reason I remember that is because I read that line over and over, that story over and over, because I'm like, how? But it makes sense. So in my opinion, books are definitely still applicable for 2026, and just, time wise, I think books will always be applicable as long as humanity still operates in the way that we do. But of course, that is debatable. So let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. If you like the video, show some love, and either way, I will see y'all in the next one.